Hey, and welcome to the second episode of If the Phrase Fits. I'm going to start this episode with a phrase that inspired the name of this podcast. It's a proverb, if the shoe fits. The full phrase goes, if the shoe fits, wear it. But a lot of the time, people just say, if the shoe fits. So, as I said, if the shoe fits is a proverb. Proverbs are very similar to idioms, except that they are meant to give advice or some other bit of wisdom. The first thing I want to mention about this expression is that it's got nothing to do with footwear of any kind, or any kind of fashion, for that matter. For those who don't know, the phrase is basically used to tell people that what has been said about them, even though it is critical or not pleasant to hear, is probably true. Let me give you an example with this following conversation.
I'm really mad. That young guy, I can't remember his name, said I'm really forgetful.
Well, Grandpa, if the shoe fits. After all, that young guy is the same doctor you've been going to for 25 years. How did this proverb come into being? According to some sources I checked on the internet, it originates from the British phrase, if the cap fits. Apparently, it was first said by the English writer and journalist Daniel Defoe. He wrote the famous novel Robinson Crusoe, about 300 years ago, by the way. He used it to criticize the British Parliament. So why did it change from if the cap fits to if the shoe fits in the U.S. and Canada? I've read that it may be related to the fairy tale Cinderella. You probably remember that a shoe, or more precisely a glass slipper, played an important role in that story. Speaking of shoes, let's look at another idiom involving shoes. This one is, the shoe is on the other foot. If you're not a native English speaker, you might have trouble figuring out what this means. Simply, it means the situation has changed. More specifically, the roles have been reversed. Let me give you an example. Let's say that I am playing ping pong, and I beat my friend by a lot. Let's say the score is 21-10. That's kind of a wipe. I'm happy, so I brag and say how much better I am than my friend. Of course, this makes him feel bad, but I feel good. Then, in the next game, my friend beats me, causing me to hit the paddle on the table in anger. Actually, I did that when I was a teenager, but only on the table my parents bought for my brother and I. So, my friend says, now the shoe is on the other foot. How do you like it? He's the victor and I'm the loser now. So the shoe's on the other foot. In other words, the roles are reversed. The origin of this expression is pretty interesting. Did you know that at one time, before the 1800s, there were no such things as left and right shoes? I know, weird, huh? Shoemakers made shoes for different size feet in general, but later they started making shoes for the right and the left feet. So once they did this, if you put the left shoe on the right foot, or vice versa, it would be uncomfortable. Just like if you lose a game of ping pong. No, I stopped hitting the table when I lost, right about the time I gave up ping pong. Oh, one other thing. Apparently the idiom started out as, the boot is on the other leg. Okay. Here's an idiom about something else people sometimes wear. Hats. The term is hat trick. Popular in sports, and you may have heard it while watching a hockey game, for example. A hat trick means a player gets 3 goals in a game, as in, he scored a hat trick. It's often used in soccer, or as the British call it, football. I don't know, is that a pretty bad accent? And in hockey. Many people believe this idiom comes from hockey. In fact, according to the Hockey Hall of Fame and the website NHL.com, it can be traced to a Toronto businessman by the name of Sammy Taft. According to this source, in order to promote his business in the 1940s, Taft offered a hat to any hockey player who scored 3 goals in a National Hockey League game played in the city of Toronto. This might only be an urban myth, though. There are other sources, including the BBC, that state the phrase was used nearly 100 years before that, and the sport wasn't hockey, it was cricket. Oh. There you have it. Let's rewind and look again briefly at our expressions for today. If the shoe fits, which is a proverb used to express that you think a negative comment about someone is appropriate. The shoe is on the other foot, which is an idiom used to indicate the situation has changed and the rules have reversed. A hat trick, which means 3 goals scored in a game or 3 games won in a row. Thanks for listening to my podcast, and thanks for Zapsplat for the sound. If you'd like to suggest an idiom, proverb, or other expression, please email me at ifthephrasefits@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and remember, if the phrase fits, use it.